Good morning. Welcome from Cloud Expo, New York City, 2014. I'm here to interview CiRBA and let Andrew introduce himself.
Yeah, hi, I'm Andrew Hillier. I'm the CTO and co-founder of CiRBA. Just to give you a bit of background on what we do, we are what we call automated capacity control software, which basically looks at all the supply and demand in a running virtual or cloud environment and does a deep analysis of that and says where should things go and how big should you make them. So it handles workload placement, routing decisions between different environments, and generally drives up efficiency and drives down risk of the environments.
So do you work both in the public and private cloud, or how do you work? Where do you work?
Well, our product tends to be run on-premise, so it generally manages internal virtual or private clouds. We do have the ability to analyze to public clouds, and we're adding more functionality there. So we're getting to the point where we can start to do total management across that boundary, as our customers need it. But we're seeing a lot of our customers, a lot of large organizations, focus mostly on internal cloud right now as a stepping stone to get there.
Okay. Is there any size of customer that you focus on, or how large a customer that you go with your product?
Well, we go quite large. It's not that our product is only valuable to large, but some of our customers are some of the biggest. We have customers running on 140,000 systems, 70,000 systems. So some of the biggest companies in the world use it. It's also valuable, of course, in smaller numbers than that. Generally, if you're a very small organization with 50 people and a handful of servers, you probably wouldn't need this level of analytics. But as soon as you get any complexity or different business services or different applications running and starts to become complex, this kind of thing starts to become very valuable.
Okay. So what are the challenges you're hearing from IT executives typically? What are they telling you? Is it more business focused? Is it technology focused? And how are you addressing those?
Well, we hear a bit of both business and technology. We see that some big drivers are cost reduction, of course. Risk reduction is big. Automation, there's a cloud show, obviously a lot of automation. So those are the big focuses. So for example, in the cost area, we find that there's a big focus on if you can make better use of the infrastructure you have and not purchase new servers, that's a big win. So we even have some customers saying, their kind of motto for the year is no new cores. Let's just use what we have better. We have customers doing software optimization. So if you use our analytics, it's like playing Tetris with the workloads. And if you do it in the right way, you can also minimize your software spend. So we see customers cutting out software costs on renewals, very large savings on that, just by being clever about where the workloads go. So you can kind of see the savings. On the risk front, we find storage is a big risk. We find a lot of people aren't looking at their storage with the compute, and so they'll run out of storage or put things on the wrong tier of storage. So basically there's a lot of cost elements and a lot of risk reduction elements that are kind of top of mind in our customers.
So when you talk about cost and they're still struggling to control costs, where are you seeing the highest cost reduction coming from? Is it on the labor? Obviously at the end is the labor, but when it is capital expenditure, are you seeing that coming from OpEx, CapEx, both? Or
there are both. So and they come at different speeds, the savings. So and it's trickle down. So for example, one of the biggest ones we see is like I mentioned, if you can increase the density of the workloads, we see with our analytics we can typically increase density around 48%, which is a lot. It's like playing Tetris very carefully with the workloads, and that translates into almost a third of the infrastructure. So that means you can defer buying hardware as you use up the capacity you have. So we've seen customers save, over $20 million doing that, over the course of a year. But that takes, it takes a while to get to that because you have to be not buying the hardware, right? So you don't get that day one, you get that as you don't buy. The software one, of course, is sometimes even more compelling. We've seen people save, on database licensing, staggering amounts, and that can come much more quickly because that's kind of on maintenance costs. Just the maintenance costs alone are huge. So, and they all have trickle-down effect too. If you decrease the footprint, if you can decrease the whole data center usage, obviously then there's all kinds of other costs that come with that. So it's not just the server costs. It usually, we see people just saying, even if I own the server already, just not plugging it in, turning it on is going to save me a lot of money.
So these are very good points. I think this will add value. Tell me specifically how you have addressed these challenges. Everybody wants to obviously optimize if it is saving 1/3, deferring costs. all great stories. How do you do it?
Well, so specifically in our product, we have two main consoles that are there's underlying analytics that is the same for both of them, but one of them is what we call a control console. So, and I'll use a hotel analogy. It's like that's the property. That's if I have a cabinet or a pod full of gear, I point it at that, and it looks at all the supply and demand, all the VM utilization levels and patterns, and like I said, it plays Tetris and defragments the capacity. Is the best way to think of it. So I can kind of increase my density of that environment and reduce the risk. And again, in a hotel analogy, that's like saying I have a hotel management system that makes sure the guests all have rooms and in the right size rooms and they're all happy. And then we have another console that sits above that. So most of our customers would have many of those running in different environments, different geographies, and they would have many, many places they can host workloads. And they might even be different platforms. We have a reservation console that sits above that, and it's like hotels.com for IT. It says, I have a new workload coming in, where can I run it? Which environments have enough capacity? Which ones have the right kind of capacity? Which is very important. So I might have a vertically scaled app that needs to run on a big Unix server. I might have a cloud app that can go over there. So the reservation console lets you make these global routing decisions of where do I run my next workload, and it'll start to balance out the infrastructure across all your environments. And both of those kind of work in unison to give you that savings. So you can kind of make the individual environments more efficient and then make better hosting decisions across everything. So those are the two consoles. They tend to be used by slightly different users, but they work together.
Okay. So when you fragment all these workloads and you move them around, are you seeing them also deployed at multi-data center environments? And how good is workload mobility in current environments, or do people have to do multiple changes to make that happen?
It's a good question. So obviously there's mobility at the lower level. There's usually mobility within, for example, a VMware cluster. As we move out, of course, there's lots of constraints on that. So a lot of our customers have multiple data centers, and part of that, the routing decision is, proximity to data feeds, or I need to be in a certain geography. And so you don't have freedom to go anywhere you want. A lot of our customers we see still on internal cloud. They're not using a lot of external cloud because there's even, again, if you have customer data, there's a lot of hesitation to do that. And they also have economies of scale. So they have a big enough internal cloud. We see customers with internal clouds that have 30 or 40,000 VMs in them. Okay. So they are basically their own cloud provider. But there are definitely mobility constraints. And we see that that's exactly the analysis we do, is that certain apps might be perfectly safe to move somewhere else or off-site because of the nature of them. Other ones don't. And I think the fact that organizations don't have a good handle on that is part of the problem. They don't really have a good way of describing their demands. They haven't had to in the past, so they can't say that app is exactly what it needs and what its compliance requirements are, redundancy requirements. And until you do that, of course, it's kind of scary to move it anywhere else. But once you do that, then you can scientifically say, yep, that's safe to put there, it's not safe to put there, and it all just becomes logical. It becomes a science at that point.
Good. These are all very good points. Where would somebody find you, Andrew, or find your company and your products, more information about that?
Well, of course, you can go to CiRBA.com, www.CiRBA.com. There's a lot of resources there. There are videos, there are brochures that kind of describe these things I've been talking about. Of course, you can pick up the phone and call us, and we're at all kinds of trade shows these days, so anywhere if you're ever at a show, we'll have a booth, I think, and we can talk about it.
Appreciate it. And with that, we are reaching the end of this call, and goodbye from New York 2014 Cloud Expo.